All right, fret dressings. That's what I was going to talk about. We've been talking about getting the business started. We've been talking about doing marketing. We've been talking about naming the business. If you've been diligent and you're a new student, you've been going through all the wealth of recorded information that there is out there. So, one of the main parts of my business, do, probably, I don't know, haven't done that many this week, but maybe 8 to 12 fret dressings a month, I think. Probably at least about $1,000 a month, I would say, in fret dressings. They've been something that I've been pretty good at. Customers can count on me for doing one really well. They refer me to other people. It's something that I saw a need for within probably the first month of getting started. Whenever I had guitars that went through a normal setup and then they just weren't playing as well as I wanted them to play after that. And then you look at them with a fret rocker and you realize that the frets are either high or low or something's going on in there that's causing the buzz. And being a perfectionist, you don't want to give the guitar back to the customer. So you're like, hey, I need to sort this out. And so that's when you get in touch with the customer and you have to, with fret dressings, you can do a bit of upselling, or you can do a bit of upselling, or you can definitely increase your transaction with upselling fret dressings for sure. And I should probably upsell them more, but actually I think it's a personal choice, maybe one of my values, that I don't want to sell people something that they maybe don't need. But okay, I got some slides. Just working on them. One sec. Fret dressings are definitely like the $100 and up type thing. I charge 130. I've been charging that for a while. People will readily pay me 130. I find that 120 and 130 is an easy ask for people. I don't, it's probably a limiting belief of mine, but I think whenever I go up into the like 150 and stuff, then people start to balk a little bit. I just quoted a guy $150 to install this acoustic like preamp pickup type system in his guitar, and he came back with, "Great, I'll be there tomorrow." And that was the first time I had charged that much for that particular thing. But fret dressings are definitely, especially when you first start off, it may take you a couple hours going through some movements that you haven't gone through before. But I would say we'll go through these slides. Skill level, I'd say, is medium. The investment level is probably moderate. Like it takes a couple $100 to get into it. I think that you can practice on your guitars. I think you can find at the very minimum a couple of frets, half a fretboard that needs a bit of something in there, and you can get in there and you won't do any damage. And if you guys ever are doing a fret dressing or this is your first time, you can always give me a call and I'll walk you through it. And you just let the tools and the techniques do the work. There's really not a whole lot. There's a couple of spots where you have to know when you're done. And we'll talk that to death tonight, but you have to know, like, it's a system and you have to know when you're finished with each little step in the system. But when do you do one? Sometimes you need to upsell a fret dressing. Like you're going through the guitar and there's a catastrophic buzz. That's when a note will not ring clear. Like it just planks out. It doesn't make hardly any sound whatsoever. You need to really contact the customer almost immediately with that. High and low frets, and there's like really bad buzzes, like buzzes that are just so bad you're like, ah, it's terrible. And it's not supposed to be there. It's not the usual like A string 5 to 8, third fret to eighth fret buzzes. It's buzzes that really shouldn't be there, that are in spots along the fretboard. And when a customer asks you for one, then you do one on their guitar. Your minimum threshold as far as fret height is going to be around, I think, is around zero point 0.4 millimeters. I did some research earlier and some people said 0.25 millimeters. I think that's really low. I measured it one time and it was zero point 0.4, and I felt like it would be hard to level it and then re-crown it afterwards. And that's the whole deal. You have to have enough material left on the fret to be able to re-crown it. You got to put some sides on the fret. Now, when you've got a catastrophic buzz, you want to talk to the owner right away, and you can say, "Hey, man, you may have noticed that blank frets were buzzing really bad. I found that it does need a fret dressing to address the high and low frets. That's going to be an additional, for me, it's additional $50. Let me know if you want to do it. And then I leave the ball in their court. It's a take it or leave it type deal. They may respond with a few more questions, but if it's really catastrophic, they probably know already that they're going to need something. They may have been hoping for just a setup, but they may have just brought it in for a fret dress. But that's how I would handle that. Now, you got another situation where you've just got high or low frets and it's causing some buzzing. The neck relief is fine, your fret height is fine, but there's significant buzzing in a few spots. And you can find it's a few frets. So it's like the fifth, the sixth, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the third fret are all buzzing like on the 11th fret. But it goes away on the 12th fret. Maybe it comes back on the 15th, it goes away on the 18th. It's like buzzing in spots. And you can check with a fret rocker, one of these guys. You can check with the fret rocker, and if it rocks, then you've got high or low frets. If you've got a real severe situation where you don't want to give the guitar back to the customer, like in this condition, you can say, hey, I found that the guitar is buzzing a lot. That's due to high and low frets. It needs something called a fret dressing, which means to level, crown, and polish the frets. That's going to be an additional $50. Let me know if you want to do it. Now, there's also a scenario where you've got high and low frets, non-severe. And this is like you're splitting hairs. Like it's a little bit off in maybe one spot. There's one note on one fret. And I'll get with people and I'll just let them know, hey, it's not a big deal. I don't really think this is a big deal, but I found a few frets that are slightly high or low, and I think it's livable, but I thought you should know. Not sure if that sort of thing really annoys you. If you want me to do them now and make it perfect, it's an additional 50, but like I said, you can probably live without it. And I'll do that sometimes whenever I think, I ask myself, if this was my guitar, would I do it? And sometimes I'm like, no. Fret dressing includes a setup. You have to do a setup with it because you got to know, you have to be able to test the guitar to see if you've done a good job. But that's a really great deal. If you're charging 70, 80, 90 bucks for a setup and then an additional level, crown, and polish, which is another hour's worth of work, that's a good deal. And it sells itself. It's a service that really people can see the value in it. I mean, customers will research it on their own. Lots of times they'll go to YouTube and stuff and they'll figure out that they want it and they'll contact you. The usual suspects for fret dressings are like Fender Made in Mexico's, Fender Squires, Epiphones, Parts Caster necks, new inexpensive guitars like Harley Benton, brands like that, where they're selling guitars for $100 to $200. Those are usually the worst ones. Then there's the dented fretboard, the guy who has just played his guitar to death, the true player. Comes in sometimes, the customer will ask for it. Remember that you have to leave enough material to recrown the fret, but I usually do a pretty good job with those. The first time they'll bring it in, you can do a fret dressing on it. Maybe the second time, I don't know. It's probably time for a refret on some of those. That's how I handle that. But usually once you can go over it. Sometimes I'm not able to remove like all the dents, like the very bottom of the dents on where they were recording the D or whatever they were recording, the C or whatever, the F. Like some of those dents are really low if they've been doing that chord over and over again for 25 years. But I do the best I can with it. I've got a stripped down way of doing fret dressing these days. And so I'm calling this just the essential tools with stripped down polishing. Polishing is where I've been saving the most time. Everything else has pretty much stayed the same. But with leveling, you're going to invest in a fret bar. I would still go with the 9-inch, still my favorite one by and large. I use it 90% of the time. You also need the notched fretboard ruler, 320 grit self-adhesive sandpaper, and a fret rocker. Your fret rocker is going to be the tool that tells you when you're done. When you're done leveling, and then I also use it to check like intermittently throughout the process too. As far as crowning, I think we've all graduated to the crowning files. And a lot of us are using these Z files, which is the centered one is just awesome. I use it all the time. This is 150. I've heard that if you want to save money, you can just go with the 300. If you do choose to just finish with the 150 grit, And you may have to start with some lower sandpaper. Like you may need to go down to maybe 400 or so sandpaper to remove some of those file marks. But I do a combination of 150 and 300. And we'll look at the tools and I have all this on a page in the course, but this has been my jam for a while. I just don't want to replace them because they still work very well. If I were going to, I like this guy right here because of the way that you can handle it right here, and it works great on the upper frets, especially like Les Paul guitars like that. It's very, you can't take the neck off, and it's hard to get into those spots. So a short one like this works great, and it also works great on acoustic guitars. It's very versatile. But I also like the diamond file, which has gotten expensive these days, and I do that as almost like a finishing file. As far as the polish goes, I'm using 600 grit sandpaper, 800, 1000, then steel wool, a good bit of elbow grease with the steel wool, and then auto saw, and it comes out beautifully. Just haven't had any trouble, and I've been doing it for months. And miscellaneous stuff you need as far as essentials is tape and Sharpie. I still use tape and I still use Sharpie on everything. When to use a radius block, you're going to use it to shape a new fretboard, like the board without frets and everything, to the desired curvature. If you've got a fretboard that just glued down to the neck, to level and dress just installed frets after using a flat file. Like if you've just refretted a guitar, you're going to use a flat file to level it, to get all the high spots out. Like by a flat file, I'm going to mean a leveling bar, a fret bar like this, get all the high and low spots out of it, and then come back with a radius beam to finish it, the radius bar to finish it up, and to radius the frets to make sure that the frets are matching the fretboard. You'd have to do that after you've just installed frets. You can also do it as a finishing step to a fret dressing. Sometimes I do it, most times I don't. If I've done a lot of heavy leveling, like if an area really needed a lot, and I feel like, man, it's gotten a lot more level than I think it should be, then I'll go back over it with the radius block just to make sure everything is kosher and that it's still got the radius that it needs to. But that's only whenever I've done like really hardcore leveling, not usually. For specific areas, especially like if you've got compound radius areas, you can go back over those areas and make sure everything is cool, especially with like that's what you can use the shorter blocks for that. Sometimes you end up,
Eric,
yes,
would you use the radius block before crowning the fret?
yes. Yeah, that'd be part of the leveling part for sure. Yeah. Sometimes you end up with, there's some guitars that have the 9.5 inch radius at the top part and then a 12-inch radius at the bottom. A lot of the newer parts caster type necks are coming out like that. You can use a shorter radius block to kind of address that whenever you get to the different parts of the neck. But I don't like, I have a ton of radius blocks, one for every single radius that there is, but I use them mostly after like refrets and stuff. So leveling system, remove the strings or loosen them and tape them out of the way. I don't mind having strings on the guitar whatsoever because I enjoy being able to just tighten up the strings. As soon as I'm finished, I take the tape off, I oil the fretboard, tighten up the strings, and you check it right then and there whether or not you've done the job of leveling, you've removed the buzzes. So I don't mind leaving the strings on. I'll do it for somebody. So you remove them or loosen and tape them out of the way. Straighten the fretboard, check it with a notched fretboard ruler. You're going to have to use one of these guys and do the best job you can. Make sure there are no gaps. So you're looking for the teeth of the ruler. You don't want to see any daylight between the teeth. And you got to go from the first fret all the way to the 24th. It's not as hard to do as you would think, but some guitars, man, could be a real pain in the ass. And if you get one of those guitars where you just can't get it perfect, then do the best that you can with it. After you've got the fretboard level, then you're going to Sharpie the frets, cut your sandpaper to size. And by size, I mean it's going to fit on your fret bar like this. Sometimes I'll even have sandpaper that's been cut to length, just hanging around, stuff that I haven't used, So I grab it and I'm just able to grab and go. I don't see any, but I usually do. I'll have strips like that hanging around. I don't see any right now, but so you're going to put your self-adhesive sandpaper on your dead straight fret bar, get that prepared, and then you're going to shimmy the fret bar back and forth until the Sharpie is removed from the top of the fret. I'm going to demonstrate that in a second. Repeat if necessary, and you probably will. I'll sit in level frets as many times as it takes to get rid of the high and low frets as checked with a fret rocker. And it could be, you could change the sandpaper once. That could be enough. You may have to change the sandpaper twice. So you may need to go through 3 strips of sandpaper. You want to check with a fret rocker like I check it over and over again just to make sure that you're getting that dead level, because that's what you have to end up with after all your crowning, after all the work that you do. Your fret rocker has to be dead level. So I'm always checking that through each step. The crowning part, you don't really need tape during the crowning. You're just going to Sharpie the tops of the frets and you're going to use your fret crowning file, and I'll demonstrate this vigorously. I definitely use it vigorously to make sure back and forth to make a thin line of Sharpie on top of the frets. So you know that you're done when visually you can see a thin line of Sharpie on the top of the fret, and visually you can see the sides of the frets reshaped. Sometimes you can go over the tops of the frets really quickly with your fret file and it'll make a thin line of Sharpie. But have you actually reshaped the sides of the fret? Maybe not. So that way you can go in and you can look at it, and have you really just removed the Sharpie and maybe done a little bit of work to the crown, or have you actually sat there and reshaped it? And you should be able to see that. And it takes a second to reshape it, but not with, it doesn't take that much work with the 150 grit. It really does a lot of heavy lifting very quickly. So that's why I like the 150 grit. It really shapes well. And then that 300 grit just comes back and pre-polishes things. Polishing, now you're going to tape off the fretboard because you don't want to damage any of the wood, which could definitely happen, especially when you start sanding. I start with 600, small piece of sandpaper, then I go with 800 and then 1000. Then I go with steel wool, the 00 stuff, and then auto solid metal polish. And it's shortened up my workflow, and I've had no negative consequences whatsoever. As far as finishing the job, I double check it even after everything is polished with a fret rocker, make sure that everything is kosher. Take your tape off. You're going to re-oil the fretboard or clean it if it's a maple fretboard, and then restring the guitar, set it up, and check it for buzzes. And you'll be chomping at the bit to see if it has any buzzes. Now, when I've gone wrong, not enough leveling or crowning, and maybe I'll throw in not enough fret rocking at the time. Like I would sometimes in the beginning, I would level everything and I would look at all the tops of the frets and look at the Sharpie, and it seemed like everything was great. So I would just move forward with the crowning and then the polishing, but I didn't build in any redundancy. And so at the end of it, I still had high and low frets. With the fret, like there's a little bit of knocking the Sharpie off the top of the frets. There's a little bit of error in that. So you got to go back and do it again and do it again, and just with a bit of redundancy anyway to get it right. It's the only way I can explain it. Oh, wait, let me go back. Sometimes I find that the fretboard itself is not straight, and there's not a lot you can do about this except for take all the frets out and re-straighten the fretboard. But I've had that happen on several guitars where it was like parts of the fretboard were sunken, and which means there were really low spots of the fretboard, and I couldn't do anything about it. There was no amount of leveling the frets that would get rid of these massive low spots that were causing the buzzes. And what really needed to happen was just the entire fretboard needed to be replaced or repaired or re-leveled, something like that. But that is probably like the 1% of fret dressings. Like I very rarely find those. Usually everything is perfect. Sometimes on it'll be older guitars where that happens. And you can, once you get into the details, once you see that, what you'll see is the notch fretboard ruler, you'll have big spots, big gaps, and you're messing around with the truss rod and you just can't get those gaps out of there. You can level, whenever you're leveling frets, you're kind of leveling them in relation to each other, but you can't get rid of like a high fretboard doing that, leveling frets in relation to the frets, because you're not leveling the fretboard underneath. Sometimes after excessive leveling and not using a radius block, it would cause fret out whenever bending strings. I've had that happen with 7.25 radius guitars. That would be the first one that comes to mind. If like you had a huge problem past the 12th fret and you had to do a lot of leveling, really flatten some spot to get it to work out, like there was catastrophic buzz. And then like maybe I didn't go back with the radius block, finished the fret dressing, started bending strings, and it would fret out. Then I would have to go back with the radius block, re-radius it, and everything would be fine. So what happened, I just flattened out a spot, and whenever I was bending, it was just too low in that spot. So you got to be aware of that, but that's another 1% type deal. You're not going to run into that too many times. But if you really are working out some really bad buzzes and that you've been sitting there leveling for a while, you got a lot of dust on your fretboard, you may need to go back over it with a radius block. Leveling after a refret is very labor intensive, extremely labor intensive. You'll have to use a radius block. What you're going to do is you're going to level first. You're going to level with fret bar first. So get your high and low frets out of there and then come back with a radius block and set your radius. And then you'll probably need like some beveling too on the edges. Stainless steel frets, expect more time in each phase, in the leveling part, in the crowning part, and in the polishing part. And then definitely plan to spend more time in the polishing part. You won't be able to do my quick hurry up polish with that. You have to do like 600 to 3,000. So keep going with your sandpaper grits. You'll have to, because that stainless steel will stay gritty like forever. So polish from 600 all the way to 3,000, and then start with your steel wool. And then I would still probably go over it with like maybe fret polishing papers after that. So you want to just do overkill whenever it comes to polishing, because that steel is so hard. So just if you want to charge extra, you can charge extra. People don't usually tell me they're shit. The last guy was a little shifty. I didn't discover that he had stainless steel frets until I was into his fret dressing. And I kept wondering, I was like, why is this so hard? It's like, why? And then I realized, I was like, these gotta be stainless steel. And the thing about stainless steel, when you start to fret it, when you play it, it's weird, man. It's got like this, you guys probably have stainless steel. It has a different feel to it. It's almost like the string sticks to the fret or something. That's metallic. It's really odd. Okay, so I have got a guitar we can work on. Got a little Telecaster here. It's made in Japan, MIJ. And I was looking at it today, doing fret rocking, and it seemed okay, but I found like high or low fret, I think somewhere in here. Right there. You guys probably won't be able to hear that, but it's the 14th fret. Only really seems to be in one spot. Overall, it's a nice guitar. Somebody gave me this guitar. Got a little spot right here as well. Let me grab a Sharpie real quick. I'm being nitpicky for demonstration purposes, but I found something there. You kind of label your frets, problematic frets. Sounds good. It's a really nice guitar, actually. I don't know why the guy gave it to me. I got two free amps. No, more than that. I have two free amps in the house right now. This free guitar. Somebody gave me a free 10-inch speaker today. Like I'm the food bank for guitar equipment. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen up the strings on this guitar. So I do this all the time. We talk about this all the time. If you got one or two frets, I've never really had luck banging them down or anything. Sometimes I try that. I've just never really had that good of luck. And you can always, there's a lot of YouTube videos though. When you type in high, low frets, it seems like you go straight to somebody with a hammer. But I've always found that the best way to address it is just to do a fret dressing. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff on spot leveling, and this is one of those times for like spot leveling because it's really only a couple of spots. I saw this video right before this where this guy had made this homemade tool where he could like spot level one fret, and man, it seems okay. But really, whenever I find like a problematic area, what I'll do is I'll address this fret and then that fret, and then maybe something up in there too. But I'm probably going to go over, I'm not going to remove that much material. So I'm going to go over like a larger area than the spot, just as an overkill type deal. It may take me a bit more time, but I'm going to be thorough about it. So. One of the things I don't want is after you take care of one spot, then you got another spot and another spot. So if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to get out my leveling bar and my sandpaper, I don't want to just shoot one bird after another. I want to shoot all the birds. Just knock it all out at one time. So I'm not going to do one spot. I'm just going to do all the spots. 320 grits self-adhesive is the way to go. This is a little one. I don't know if I'm going to use the little one. Maybe I'll use the 9-inch. But the thing about the 9-inch is it extends over, so you got to watch out for the top of this pickup right here. You don't want your sandpaper to hit the top of the pickup. I don't know, so I don't know if that's going to be the best one or if maybe that's the best one. I think I'm going to keep it small on this job. I don't get a lot of use out of this one, so I'm going to use the 4.5-inch one. You get the tape, I think it's 2 3/4 inch wide, or maybe 2.5 inches wide, and you're able to cut it into 3 strips. This has got some adhesive on it on the top from the last time I put tape on it. That would add to the thickness of the new tape going on, so I'm going to clean that off. Find something to clean it. Well, spirits is not the best for this. Find the razor blade. You don't clean the old adhesive off. It's one of the reasons why your fret bar will give you false positives. Like you'll see the you'll see the Sharpie marker removed, but you won't actually have touched the top of the fret. Maybe the fret's not actually level with the other frets, but the Sharpie has been removed. Some of that is because of just the error in the tape sitting on top of the fret bar. It has little lumps in it. So we'll press it down, shimmy back and forth. If you go this motion like this, then the front edge of this will always like pick up the Sharpie. So you don't want to do that. You want to only take the Sharpie off when the sandpaper has actually touched it. If you keep going up it like down like that, then this front edge will always take the Sharpie off. Give you false positives. Your frets after you've yet leveled them with the fret bar, the Sharpie on the top of the fret to tell you a story. You can see that this one right here is probably one of the lower parts. You can see where the fret bar has really touched a lot. So if you've done this a few times, I always examine this. It's almost like reading tea leaves. So you can kind of see what's going on with the frets. Like I'm taking off a lot right here. That's not a big deal. I'm not taking off a lot in general, but that means that one maybe was a little high. But you definitely want to use your bar in a shimmy style and not back and forth like that.
I'm sorry, I had to step away for a minute, Eric. How much pressure do you put on those frets when you're doing that?
I will honestly, sometimes I'll put a lot, but right now I'm not doing hardly anything. Just back and forth, but Sometimes if I'm really trying to work out an area, I'll put a lot of pressure on there. And I'll let the 320 grit sandpaper give up, which it will. There's just not much to it. Like this, just this little spot that I've done, it's pretty much used up. This guy right here, maybe not, but I measured it one time and I was taking off like 10 hundredths. I think it was 2 hundredths of an inch, I think is with the actual material that I took off. 0.02 of an inch, 2 hundredths of an inch, which wasn't very much. It's not, it's only a little bit of dust right there. I'm going to go ahead and check it again, make sure that I've actually done my job. You're going to do fret rocking on your frets and make sure you're doing it in multiple spots. Mimic your strings. You got 6 strings, so you can check it wherever your strings are at, wherever you think they're going to be. But I'll be very redundant and I'll check this over and over again, which I think this is fine. The 2 spots were the 14th fret right here. It's fine now, and like the 16th down there. Perfect. Okay. So one more swipe of the Sharpie. And this is going to be able to, so I know that I'm done because I've gone over it with a fret rocker and I'm satisfied with my results that I'm not getting any rocking frets. So that part of the level is finished. I've checked it with a fret rocker. So to start the crowning process, I'll start again with this Sharpie, and this is going to let me know type of job that I've done on crowning the frets. I'm going to start with 150. Get you guys better. Get that really thin line on top of there, but you have to look, actually look, make sure that you put in enough work to actually shape the size. Because another thing I think that I was doing with the 300 file was I was rubbing off a lot of the Sharpie, but I wasn't doing a whole lot of shaping. This was sometimes. Those one of the reasons I invested in the 150 so that I could go back. So I could make sure that I was shaping very thin red line. Oops.
APR and no payment until next year on 2025 Ford models. Plus, current eligible non-GAAP for sale for $3,000 on Porsche.
So the tool does the job for me. I'm not doing anything other than moving my arm back and forth. I started this with a 3-corner file. There's a bunch of videos in the course how to use a 3-corner file. I would definitely recommend that you get one and you learn how to use it. They're great. But who has the time for that now? So I've got 4 frets there. They're all well shaped. I just
Eric,
yeah.
hey, what was it? That 300 just taking way too long?
I had this for 4 years, so even maybe longer than that, 4.5 or so years. And I didn't think that I was doing as good of a job as I could have. Because I found that this one would just, if all I was using was this, it would just kind of round the frets over. It wasn't really shaping them that much. But it was rounding the frets over, making them look good, and it was pre-polishing them. And I thought it's good enough, but my results weren't impressing me. So then what I would do is I would take the 3-corner file and I would shape the frets with the 3-corner file, and then I would go back over it with this so that I could get more of a crown. That was my experience. So that's why I added this guy to the repertoire and I added it at the 150 grit level so that I could make sure that I was really moving some metal quickly. I was really recrowning quickly. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But I've always used this one, and I still like it. This is the diamond file. It's like the S file. And I use this one as a pre-polishing. Now, if you had the 300 grit, you could use the 150 and then the 300. I've also heard that the 300 And this version will just do the job. We'll just recrown the frets really nicely. You may not need another file, but this one definitely pre-polishes a bit.
Yeah, I have that 300. I was worried the 150 would take too much off, but I definitely need that 150.
No, it won't take
Yeah.
It's just right, and it's probably even essential with like stainless steel frets.
Awesome, thank you.
Maybe you've already answered this question, but when you're polishing the frets, and I think you said you started out with a 400 grit and worked up to 1,000, then you used steel wool, is that right?
I start with 600 and I go to 1,000 and then steel wool. Yep.
Okay. Do you look to see what you're doing to the crowning of the frets when you're doing that, or do you think you're taking any material off, or?
No, I don't think I'm taking anything off. Maybe on the 600, I might be a wee bit apprehensive to go over the very top of the fret, but I'm not worried about it. Especially with 800 and 1,000, you're not touching the top of that. I don't think you're removing the crown at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious about that because I do it a little differently. I start with a 400 and then I work my way up to a 5,000 grit.
Yep.
And then I do a buff on top of that with a Dremel.
Oh,
And I just wondered how much, because I never really looked to see what if I was taking off a lot of fret there.
I don't think so. But I think less sanding is less sanding. So the less sanding you're doing, the less material you're taking off. But I don't think you're taking off very much in those whenever you get up to 5,000 and all that. The reason I've been cheating lately, and I don't even call it cheating, I just wanted to see. I just wanted what my belief system was. Could I actually do it? And I'm in this other group and I heard these other guys talking. They're like, that's how we do it. So I wanted to try it. And I've got really good results. So this is 800. No, yeah, this is 600. And I'll start with a piece of paper about like this. It's usually a weird size. And I'm using it like I'm putting pressure where the edge of the fret is. I'm not really putting pressure on the top of the fret. I'm not super scared, but the tip of my finger is really trying to land on the edge of the fret.
And the third bank plan ensure that some medical costs. The doctor is an emergency care, but would you ever go above the maximum amount of profit amount that you? You don't get that kind of predictability. All United Medicare Advantage plans include
800.
vision coverage that includes vision exams and a yearly allowance for diet and hearing aids, including routine hearing exams and covered sports hearing. There are $0 copays for in-network and
You can also hit your fret ends too while you're at it. A little bit. This is 1,000. At the 1,000 level, I'll press really hard. About as hard as I'm sitting in a chair. I'm not going to break the neck. Just about as hard as I want to. Then. So that's it. And then you really got to make sure that, because this stuff gets everywhere, you got to make sure that all your pickups are taped up. No magnets around. The wool's a little gross. You can just put it in your fingers. You could do like the whole fretboard with that piece. Probably cost less than a nickel.
That's for wool, Eric.
Yes, sir. I don't know if that's a good demo or not, but that's the one. It's completely slippery and smooth, whereas these are all scratchy. I'll do the rest of them. You have to put a bit of elbow grease at the steel wool part. You can definitely feel it being polished. This part takes a bit of elbow grease as well. But yeah, I can guarantee you it's going to play extremely well. Very polished, very slippery, very nice. When you touch them, they're just as slippery as they could be. No scratchiness whatsoever. So on the final, once you got through doing these, I've got to go back and do the rest tomorrow. But add a little bit of some oil because the adhesive is gonna It makes the fretboard all yucky and everything. So you got to clean that off. The adhesive from the tape. I've tried less adhesive tape than this blue stuff and came off. It wasn't sticky enough for me anyway. The yellow stuff I was using there for a while just wasn't, it's like it just didn't stick very well. But you just clean the adhesive off and then go back over it. Maybe check it one more time with a fret rocker just to make sure. It's the 14th fret, my low E. It's taken care of now. Okay. So everything's all kosher. I know that I've done it. I've done fret dressings before, and then you go back and you're like, how do I have a fret rocking again? I thought I went through this process. So that's why I'm very paranoid with it and very redundant. It is a great upsell. You could probably get industrious with it and upsell it a bit more even than I do. I feel bad upselling stuff, but why feel bad? There's a lot of guitars with buzzes, and you could let them know in your invoice, especially you're going to let them know if there's any issues with the guitar, and you can raise your transactions.